you are involved. So that's the entire council is involved in a live case of the cover-up of some safeguarding issue. And my information is to do with a child. The councillor, Brian Hobin, is a convicted fraudster. He swindled old women out of their life savings. He worked for an insurance company.
And I'm an elected councillor as well. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing, and returning guest is a good friend of mine, Miah. How you doing, Raja?
I'm well, thank you, Nick. How are you?
I am just got back off holiday, got a bit of a tan. I've been relaxed.
Yeah, you're looking like you've got a bit of colour to you. Yeah. It's not the lights. It's not
the lights. I've actually sat in the sun. And I missed a great week of weather when I was away. I should have stayed here for the week, then went away.
I was in York, Nick, for over the weekend. It was my birthday yesterday, but I went over the weekend with my daughter to York, and we sat in the park on the Saturday afternoon, had a picnic, and I had a snooze. It was glorious. It was a glorious Saturday afternoon. Yeah.
Well, you've got to take advantage when we get that type of weather, because as we both know, it hardly ever comes to this island. Let's jump into this. What's been going on in Oldham? You've been very busy on social media, as you always are. What's going on in Oldham at the moment?
Well, Nick, if you follow my work, those of you who follow my work, you'll have seen a little video snippet I put out yesterday. It was the annual council meeting in Oldham. So the annual council meeting is two main agenda items. One is the mayor making. It's usually a formality. They've agreed in the background of who's going to be the mayor. It's a previous deputy mayor. So that's agenda one. It's easily rubber stamped. And the second is confirmation of the leader of the council. And in a town like mine, that's also been historically rubber stamped, because Labour, when we entered this campaigning phase 6 years ago, controlled 47 of the 60 seats. So it was a foregone conclusion. Last year, at the annual general meeting, was the first time we had reduced Labour's majority to a minority. And it was the first time we made a move to secure an alternative leader. We weren't really bothered in the mayor, Nick, because that's ceremonial. There was a historical process of the previous deputy, and then they all get points, and the points mean someone gets a different turn every few years. That's how it was meant to be. So that's what happened last year. And it was Dr. Chauhan still last year. They extended him for a year. The Lib Dems agreed to extend him for a year because his wife died of cancer, and it interfered in his mayoral year. And it was the right thing to do. I've had my ups and downs with Dr. Chauhan, but right is right and wrong is wrong, Nick. And he's got a young family. He'd become the mayor. And during his mayoral tenure, his wife was diagnosed with cancer. Her cancer got worse, and she deteriorated and died. I went to the woman's funeral, and it was the right thing to do to extend him for a year. So this year was the year when Eddie Moores automatically became mayor, because he'd been the previous deputy, which meant that they would elect a new deputy. And secondly, they would also elect or confirm who the leader of the council was. Now, last year was the first year we got it down to 27, where they were 47 before, so Labour became a minority administration. And we lost. And we lost because 4 of the independents who had signed pledges in the campaign, I helped elect, people who campaigned with me helped elect. They emailed me. I've got the emails confirming they would never enter a pact with Labour. The 2 factions, one was the Shaw and Crompton faction, led by a man called Councillor Mark Hince and his sidekick Lisa Nafesy. There was just 2 of them. And the other 2 was Brian Hobin from the Fells of Independence and his sidekick Neil Hindle. I've got signatures from both leaders, Mark Hince and Brian Hobin, confirming that they would never enter, they would not enter a pact with Labour, and help hold them to account in terms of all the things we've talked about. First thing they did, Nick, a recording was leaked from inside the council. Nothing to do with me. One of the other council, one of the other parties, the Lib Dems, used some sort of recording device and recorded a secret meeting between Mark Hince, Lisa Nafesy from the Shaw and Crompton Independents, Arif Sha, the chief executive who was neck deep in this, the new chief executive who was also in that room, all conspiring of how they would maintain power and what these people would receive in exchange for power. So we left disheartened last May because what happened was we'd worked and worked and worked. We'd elected the independents, and at the first opportunity, Nick, they betrayed, not me, they betrayed the town, they betrayed the borough, and they got into bed with the Labour Party for very, very minimal reward. You know, one got an old community centre that was knackered and derelict. And the head of planning, which I'm sure has its other rewards, Nick, if you want to go down that road. And the other guy, as we've now found out this year, has been put forward as the deputy mayor. So he'll be the mayor next year. So what we have is completely unprecedented. There is a man, a councillor called Councillor Brian Hobin, who's led us, is jumped on the bandwagon of the CSE. You can find him on GB News regularly, talking about all the work he's done. He hasn't, Nick. He's just took the work we've done and presented it as is. And we don't care. You know, why would I care? As long as the work got done, I didn't really care. But for the last 5 or 6 years, he's been stealing our work, using it, passing it off as is. Fine, mate. If it means we progress on this issue, I didn't care. But what he now is in bed with Labour, is propping up Arif Sha, the heroin dealer endorsed leader of Oldham Council. Let's be clear. There's no one can sue me. These are facts. And he will be the mayor next year, even though it wasn't his turn. It was the Liberal Democrats' turn to put forward a mayor. So Arif Shah has broken precedent, and what she's done is basically bribed him with the future of being mayor. So he turned up to the council chamber, and I'd had enough. By this point, I'd had enough, Nick. And I'm like, I'm happy to give people a second chance, a third chance, but enough's enough. Brian Hobin is a convicted fraudster. Councillor Brian Hobin is a convicted fraudster. He swindled old women out of their life savings. He worked for an insurance company. He was convicted in a court in Bolton a few years ago. So the next mayor of Oldham Council is going to be a man who is a convicted fraudster. That's the gutter of politics in Oldham.
Have you got any more information on that conviction?
Of course, it's in the Bolton Times. Type in his name, and the article will come up. Type in Brian Hobin, Bolton Times, and you will see his conviction details come up. I don't make false allegations, Nick, because if I did, I'd be, every attempt to sue me and lock me up would have succeeded by now.
You'd be in court more than you already are.
Yeah. So, this is wrong on that level. Now, I was willing to think, okay, it was not a long time in his past. We're not talking about a child, a young man who's 18 or 20. It was in our age. It was in his 40s or he was in his 50s. He did what he did, and people were willing to forgive him, but they won't forgive him now because he got elected on a mandate to fight against the corruption and the criminality that infests our town. And he's been bought off with the position of mayor next year. Now, there was a massive fight in the council chamber, and the majority opposition councillors walked out. Remember, they're meant to go for a meal afterwards together. It's a mayor-making ceremonial thing. They have a slap-up meal all together, and half the council walked out, and they were led by a man called Councillor Cameron Gafford. And this is the gutter politics of my town. There are very few good guys. It's bad guys versus worse bad guys. And I call it Cartel Wars. So Arif Sha represents the Labour Party Pakistani faction. So she's endorsed by one set of heroin dealers. There's a guy who was convicted for kidnap and torture. So that's her side. That's on one side. And she's bought the white politicians. That were the independents. On the other side is the opposition. Lib Dems are useless. So on the other side is this Pakistani sectarian group. I call them a Pakistani sectarian group because that's what they are. They campaigned on the general election. They campaigned on a pledge of a one-state solution in the Middle East. So that's the eradication of Israel. They openly campaigned on a one-state solution. They used Gaza, but they went further than many of us. They said, no, we're campaigning on a one-state solution, and that state is Palestine. So these are, Pakistani sectarians, Islamist separatists. Call them what you want. And that group is led by a man called Cameron Ghaffar. Cameron Ghaffar has attempted to sue me. His lawyers wrote to me, and that was the end of that, because the truth is the truth. Cameron Ghaffar is a HMO landlord. He's a millionaire. He's made his money through HMOs. And as the Labour Party stood up in the chamber yesterday, Elaine Taylor, the deputy leader, she read out his convictions.
Wow.
Yeah, she read out his convictions for his failure to look after rental properties, to the standard.
So it's basically a slum landlord.
He's a slum landlord. And then she also made reference to how only last month, I think it was, or very recently, that the council had had to intervene and take out families in some of his properties. So a slum landlord, I think, is a you can sue me if you want, but I think that I know the majority of people would agree that if you've been convicted, and pled guilty to a series of charges to do with not being able to hold your property to a standard for your tenants, then the definition of slum landlord is an appropriate one.
And an elected councillor as well.
Well, first of all, he was in the Labour Party historically. These are Pakistanis. This is how they play the game. They have no real political allegiances. They will get in bed with any political party to promote their clan. I talk about clans, yeah. So he was in the Labour Party originally. Then he joined the Conservatives with a team of Pakistanis. He got suspended. The others got expelled for anti-Semitism.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. And then off they went and set up the Oldham group. So a bunch of Pakistanis, a bunch of Muslims created a faction within the council. And they don't drink, but I'd imagine if it's the sort of name you come up with after you've had a drink too many, let's call ourselves the Oldham group. Yeah, a bunch of exclusive Muslims, exclusive Pakistanis. They now got a white guy with them, but that's who they are. But Cameron Ghaffar, as I released information, you've got to understand all of this. I talk about how the cartels operate, and they have politicians, they have gangsters, and they have crooked businessmen as a golden triangle, and how these clans operate. Well, Cameron Gaffar's brother was on Greater Manchester's most wanted list for Class A drug distribution, supply and distribution of Class A drugs.
Ajay, if I didn't know you and we'd not had dozens of these conversations, I automatically would be thinking you're lying, you're exaggerating, you're some sort of Walter Mitty character, because every time I speak to you, you say more and more outrageous things, but it just happens all to be true. It's absolutely shocking what's going on in your area.
So he made a move to become the leader of the council. So the choice was, after they'd elected a convicted fraudster as the next mayor of the council, right? The choice of who the leader was between Arif Sha, whose brother is a convicted money launderer, who hangs off the arm of an infamous gangland, criminal
enforcer,
getaway driver. Yeah, he's an enforcer, and then associates with men who've been convicted for kidnapping and torture. Not just hangs out with them, wears Labour rosettes next to them. Yeah. So on one side you've got Arif Shah, yeah, and on the other side you've got Cameron Ghaffar. I call it Cartel Wars, because Cameron Gaffar's sidekick is a councillor called Abdul Wahid. Abdul Wahid wears a nice suit, tries to present himself, squared up to me at a count last year because I called him out. I will never support Pakistani sectarians. I will never support Islamists. I'm not that, Nick. My position is very clear. I believe in a liberal Western democracy. I'm raising my daughter here. I want to save our country from all of the chaos we see elsewhere. And I think if we don't speak out to what is around us, then it creeps up on you and it'll take over. And it is our cowardice that allows it. So I called him out. Well, anyway, Abdul Wahid's brother is also a convicted drug dealer. He was part of a gang that tried to smuggle in, I think, cannabis from somewhere in Amsterdam or somewhere in cheese grates or something. You can type it in the MEN and you'll find his name of a £4 million drug run from Amsterdam. So what you've got here, I think what I'm saying to you is there's two factions, and both factions have got criminality all around them. Yeah. And one faction has bought off the independents who promised us they would work with us, to help clean this town up, and they've been bought very easily. If the mayoral change is all it takes, for you to surrender the place we call home, then that's a reflection on you. So that's what took place. There was a massive argument. And what the argument revealed is something far worse. So Brian Hobin flips because, he's been called out. Cameron Goffor flips because in the council chamber, the council Elaine Taylor has read out his criminal charges, his criminal convictions. Yeah. And he flips. And before they walk out, Brian Hobin starts shouting and reveals that the council are involved in another cover-up of abuse. It sounded like child abuse or some form of safeguarding. The council in that meeting, Brian Hobin is shouting, saying that, who are you to tell me this? You are involved. So that's the entire council is involved in a live case of the cover-up of some safeguarding issue. And my information is to do with a child. So all of them in there, from the council, all the council leaders are right now are actively involved in covering up a safeguarding issue involving at least one councillor who sat in that chamber. And it's not me saying this. This played out yesterday. It's outrageous. So after the fun and games of we've got a convicted fraudster who's going to be the next mayor of Oldham, who got elected to fight Labour but is now in bed with Labour. The fight of who was going to be leader, two Pakistani factions. The meeting then ended with shouting and screaming that disclosed that Oldham Council is currently involved in covering up a serious safeguarding issue involving a councillor.
Now, these accusations at the moment from that councillor in the chamber.
It's the deputy mayor. He's now the deputy mayor shouting.
Yeah. It's a deputy mayor as well. How do we get more information on that?
Well, surely it should be a police matter.
Because they're serious allegations.
It's a police matter. And they're not allegations I'm making or you're making. These are allegations on public record at an open council meeting, the annual council meeting, where the deputy mayor sits at the top table and shouts and screams that the council is involved in covering up. And you've got to read a little bit between the lines, but he talks about safeguarding issues and involving a councillor. I got the impression there's at least one child involved. And is there a grooming gang in the council? Is there a rape gang in the council? Is there a paedophilia gang involving councillors that the council are covering up? And I've got to ask these questions because that's the only place we can go to from having heard that outburst and that exchange. Is there a rape gang operating in the council involving councillors? And you can see I'm now not joking with you, Nick. That's the only place where this leads to. The deputy mayor of Oldham Council, the newly elected deputy mayor of Oldham Council, has made serious allegations against his own council in the council chamber. Or at least
all on record now.
On record, not me. On record. This isn't Raja Mia's gone and found some information, or I've got an email, or I've met someone who's told me something, or from someone. This is on record. Where is Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Mayor? He should be sending the police in immediately because this is serious. This is a town where we now have it confirmed that the council covered up the rape gangs. It's confirmed. It's confirmed for a number of reasons. One is because the rapid audit that the Home Secretary ordered, is it Louise Casey, Baroness Casey, I think, and that rapid audit is late, and you know why it's late. I know why it's late. They're now tinkering with it. That rapid audit specifically references Oldham as a place where the rape gangs operated. So now we know, what everything we've said is true. Admitted it in their own official documents on a .gov.uk terms of reference of the rapid audit. Oldham is referenced next to Telford and Rochdale and Rotherham. Now we have the deputy mayor make serious allegations of what sounds like some form of rape gang operating out of the council.
Now, we both know that accusation by itself will lead to nothing. What do we do now to make it lead somewhere? Because we know Andy Burnham will do nothing. We know the local MPs will do nothing. We know this government will do nothing. They'll push it under the carpet. They'll say, that's outrageous, him saying that. No, they will make excuses. Andy Burnham will do zero on this because he's done zero on this in his 8 years in charge.
He has.
What can we do? What can you do? What can the people of Oldham do on this serious allegation?
The first thing we've got to do is make sure people know what happened, because most people didn't watch it, and those who watch it would have missed it or not understood the ramifications. So the meeting only happened yesterday. I put the content out yesterday. Yeah, it was also my birthday yesterday, Nick. So I had a day with my daughter for tea. So that's where I went. But I think in terms of practicalities, we've got to lobby our councillors. We've got to make them ask the questions. But it seems the allegation was the councillors knew. They're all in on it. We've got to write to the Home Secretary. Ordinarily, in a functioning democracy, I would pick up the phone and speak to the MP. And the MP would immediately think, hold on, this is unacceptable. Because they're different, there's layers of separation between the council and your MPs. But here, they're one and the same.
Yeah, because they both rely on each other to be elected again.
Yeah, I'd go to the police. Well, we now know the police are neck deep in the cover-up. And every time I've said anything, they've tried to arrest me to silence me. So we know the local government are involved. We know the chief executive who sits there now, the new chief executive, a woman called Shelley Kipling, was part of Jim McMahon's communications team during the cover-up of the gang rape. And the communications team helped cover up the gang rape under a man called Carl Marsden. We know Carl Marsden's wife, Dawn Marsden, works for the Deputy Prime Minister. This is why I've been campaigning for a public inquiry. This is why I spend all my time on social media. This is why I spend all my time saying to people, please follow my work on the newsletter. And people say, why do you keep asking for people to follow your work? Because, believe it or not, the majority of people in this country do not know what is going on. And if I shared what is going on the way I'm doing with you, most people wouldn't believe it, Nick. It's worse than something out of some, some drama series on forget BBC, on Netflix. It's beyond fiction. What I'm sharing with you ordinarily is beyond fiction, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
So what do? We campaign. We've got to write. Because that's what you can do. We've got to speak out. We've got to say, well, is there a rape gang operating out of Oldham Council? And that is the question I'm going to ask. I'm going to keep asking, is there a rape gang operating out of Oldham Council? Because that's what it sounds like to me from the outburst of the deputy mayor. And what had happened was, well, if you're going to talk about my criminal convictions, I'm going to talk about your criminal convictions. Well, if you're going to talk about my criminal convictions, I'm going to tell you what we're all involved in. And that's what's gone on. Long term, what do we do?
Shocking.
There's another round of elections in May next year. Oldham didn't have any elections this year. There's another round of elections in May. I'm desperately hoping that I can nudge people to support reform. It's the only show in town, in my town. I don't know what it is elsewhere, and if it's different elsewhere, then it's different elsewhere. We've tried with the independents, Nick. We know they have been easily bribed and they haven't got the infrastructure around them. So that won't work, and people won't vote for them anymore because they've seen for themselves what these people have done. They've either been outright complicit and in just taking bribes and changing sides, or we've got them elected and they've been too scared to speak out. No, I get that. I understand that. Now I'm going to fix this. And you go to a room and there's 20 policy officers staring at you the borough solicitor staring at you, all the lights are on you, and it's easy to, in your mind, to say, I will do this. And then when you get to that place, and whether you have the courage and the conviction to see it through. So I don't hold those people responsible in the same way. But again, they failed. The truth is they failed. Reform is the only show in town, and this is where it gets a bit sad, Nick. When you and I last spoke, I talked about reform, didn't I, with you? And I said we need to support them. And everywhere I go, like I'm in Lancashire next week, we'll talk about that in a little while, I think, because they've just took control of the council there, haven't they? I encourage people in my town to say, look, we tried the independents, and I have political sway. I do. I accept that. I have political sway. So I'm very careful with it, Nick. I don't tell people what to do. I give people the evidence, the information. I try and educate them so they make their own minds up. I'm very aware of the influence I have, and try and be as light with it as possible, particularly with decent people in my hometown. So I've been encouraging people to join Reform. They were meant to have their AGM last week. It seems like people did join Reform, and it seems like some people decided they wanted to have, take up roles in the committees and stuff like that. So help with the fundraising, help with the campaigning. And the existing interim team of Reform haven't took too well to it, and have had the meeting cancelled. So let's see what happens. Apparently, the rules of the branch rules are being rewritten. I presume if the branch rules are being rewritten now, they'll have to be rewritten for the entire country, for every branch. And what I've done is issued a simple statement, because I'm not interested in that petty level of silliness, Nick. It's petty. It's there's the big fish in a small pond. That my fight is a public inquiry and justice on these issues, and the wider challenge that we have of creeping Islamists and the arrangements some of our mainstream parties have with these people, and the impact it will have on our nation. I mean, that's my fight. It's not. I'm not interested in some petty fight at a local level. So what I've said to people is, listen, if these people want to stay in control, if that's all that matters to them, don't fall out with them. Don't shout and scream at them. Don't tear up your membership cards. Continue to be a member. Go and help. We are working class people. We don't have choices. Our choices are limited. And if someone wants to be the big I am chairman or the secretary or whatever, who cares? Go and campaign. Go and campaign and help get politicians elected. And if we can get politicians elected, I think in two further years, we can have a reform-controlled council in Oldham. Because at the same time, what I've done is spoken to existing councillors offline who are decent, decent councillors, independents, conservatives, who see what's going on and thinking, we're powerless. Unless we do something, we're powerless. So I'm hoping that by September, you will see 3, if not 4, councillors in Oldham who cross the floor and create a reform pact.
That would be great if that happens. What people need to
it will happen.
Yeah. What people need to realise with Reform's a brand new party. We think it's been around for 4 years. It really only started at the general election. After the general election, that's when Reform really started. So it's less than a year old. It needs time,
and that's why I say, Nick, to people. If some people want to keep control or keep power, if it matters to them, let them. It doesn't matter. We fall out with them, or we have this one faction here, one faction there, and the general public, Nick, what turns them off the most isn't a sense of powerlessness. Like, what can we do? Or if we do anything, it's not going to change anything. The system's too strong. That's not what turns people off. What turns people off more than anything else is people who should be on the same side as each other bickering.
Yeah. It's always that internal stuff that ruins it.
Yeah, so I don't get involved. I refuse to get involved. Call me whatever name you want. Apparently, people are briefing against me. I'm toxic. Well, if telling the truth makes someone toxic, being principled and resolute the way I have been for 6 years, if being put in, prison cell, police cell after police cell, in every dock, in every court in Greater Manchester, and still coming out the other end, where I've been proven right. If that makes me toxic, then I'm too old to change like that. The truth is the truth, Nick. Our children were groomed and gang raped. The future of our country is at risk. Beyond just that issue, the future of our country is at risk. And I will take it to my deathbed that when the moment came, I did everything I could.
And that's all this country can ask of any man or any woman in this country, is that they've done their best. They've tried, because that's all you can do is try. Raja, as always, thank you so much for coming on, and let's do this again soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cheers.